If you've ever tried to understand the SR-71's engines, chances are you've come across these diagrams from the SR-71's flight manual. Let's face it though, they're not as clear as they could be. So let's clean it up and simplify. There we go! The whole diagram is the complete engine nacelle, made up of the airflow inlet, the Pratt & Whitney J58 engine, the convergent-divergent ejector, and the airplane body. At speeds below Mach 2, the J58 acts like any other afterburning turbojet engine. Air flows into the nacelle through the inlet, where it's allowed to diffuse behind the supersonic shockwave before moving into the multi-stage axial compressor, which looks like this, but bigger. Here the air is compressed before heading into the burner where fuel is added for combustion. The heated exhaust turns the turbine and provides the engine's forward thrust as it's accelerated to high speeds by the ejector. The turbine turns the compressor and keeps the engine cycle going. Just after the turbine is the afterburner, where more fuel is added to the exhaust in order to get as much of the oxygen out of the air as possible. While afterburners allow for powerful bursts of acceleration, they're really inefficient, costing huge amounts of fuel for the increased force. What makes the J58 engine so different than all other turbojets are these 6 bypass tubes, which you don't find on these diagrams. The tubes open when the plane is flying at speeds greater than Mach 2.2, moving compressed air from the 4th stage of the compressor directly into the afterburner. This allows the engine to act more like a ramjet, which allows the SR-71's afterburner to operate at a much higher fuel efficiency. The forward motion of the aircraft handling most of the air compression at a ratio of about 39:1, with the 4 turbine stages adding an additional compression of about 1.6:1. The combined action of the turbine and ramjet compression makes the J58 a very unique type of engine, a turbo ramjet, and allows the plane to cruise at speeds that would make a normal turbojet melt. The Blackbird's inlet design is as important to allowing the J58 to do its thing as the engine itself, so let's see how it works. In the middle of the inlet is this symmetrical spike called the inlet spike or center body, and behind it is the diffuser, where compressed air spreads out before entering the engine. At supersonic speeds, the inlet spike takes the pressure of the leading supersonic shockwave off of the engine so that the engine gets the best airflow. Inside the inlet, a second shockwave is formed called the normal, where the air coming into the nacelle transitions from low-pressure supersonic speeds to high-pressure subsonic speeds. Where the normal ends up inside the inlet depends on the speed at which the aircraft is moving and the shape of the inlet and inlet spike. When the aircraft hits Mach 1.6, the normal ends up in the best place inside the inlet for pressure recovery, which is the percentage of the pressure caused by the plane's supersonic flight forward that gets translated into usable pressure inside the diffuser for the engine. This ratio is a very high 90% for the SR-71 when flying at Mach 3.2. So to keep the normal in the optimal position for pressure recovery, the spike retracts 1.6 inches for each 0.1 increase in Mach number above Mach 1.6. This changes the relative geometry of the inlet, keeping the normal at the optimal position. When the plane reaches its cruising speed of Mach 3.2, the external shockwave is positioned directly at the inlet's lip, called the cowl, and the inlet spike is retracted 26 inches. It's at this speed that the J58 turbo ramjet has its maximum fuel efficiency, with the pressure recovery at the inlet doing most of the air compression work for the afterburner. Okay, now that we've seen how the inlet, engine, and ejector all work together, let's look at the other details found inside the engine nacelle. Positioned inside the cowl is a cowl bleed that captures some of the incoming air and passes it through a ring of circular openings called shock traps that drop the airspeed to subsonic and guide it through the nacelle body around the engine for cooling. The air is drawn out of the nacelle by the fast-moving exhaust flowing through the ejector. At speeds below Mach 0.5, not enough air is coming through the inlet for cooling, so more air comes in through suction doors that are positioned midway along the nacelle. These close at Mach 0.5, which the plane only hits just after takeoff and just before landing. Before the ejector are a set of tertiary doors that also open at low speeds to prevent the ejector from creating places of drag caused by not enough air and exhaust flowing through it. These close at Mach 1.2 and stay closed for most of the Blackbird's flight, opening only for takeoff, landing, and refueling. Both the suction doors and the tertiary doors allowed the powerful J58 to operate at speeds much slower than its high cruise speed. The engines are so big that each needs 2 muscle car motors on the ground to start it and rev it up to a self-supporting speed. But I digress. The last 3 details found in the nacelle are required for keeping the normal shockwave in place in the inlet. The first is the center body bleed, which connects the grill on the outside of the nacelle to a set of slits on the spike through a hollow center body middle. At low speeds, the center body bleed allows the engine to pull additional air into the inlet, while at higher speeds, the bleed wicks away the boundary layer, a layer of low-pressure turbulent air that normally sticks to the spike and reduces pressure recovery. Inside the inlet is a series of slots that run between the shock tubes that lead directly out of the plane. These are the forward bypass doors, which allow an analog computer to lower the pressure inside the diffuser by sending some of it outside the aircraft. But if the pilot wants to reduce drag during acceleration or provide additional cooling to the engine, he or she can open the aft bypass doors, which route the additional pressure through the nacelle and out the ejector. And that's it! That's how the J58 turbo ramjet inside of the Blackbird engine nacelle works. Now when you look at these diagrams, they don't seem so complicated after all. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Tech Laboratories for more mind-blowing videos on science and technology. I'm Tech Adams, saying keep thinking, and thanks for watching. This makes sure that the front shockwave created by the nose at supersonic speeds doesn't intersect with the rest of the aircraft, reducing overall drag. This is not your average museum. It's not just a stop on your way by as you're passing through. This is a destination.